You are listening to the Align and Inspire podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Monique, and in this episode, we are going to be talking all about program design, how to structure your program so you don't feel like you're winging it, but you're still really creating that quality experience for your clients. It feels intuitive and you're really getting them the results they need. You're supporting them. It's one of my absolute favorite topics, and we are going to be diving in today. So if you are new to this series, I'm actually running a series on scalable signature programs. And this is episode 2, because if you are like many of my clients, you might want to go from growing one-on-one. Maybe you've got a really great one-on-one practice right now. You've got your one-on-one clients, things are going well, but transitioning to a group can feel daunting. And I want to show you that it's actually quite simple. So this is a series. This is the second episode. And there are really 3 things that you need to go from one-on-one to a group. So the first thing you're going to need is an offer that is magnetic. You need a program that gets repeatable results, which is what we're going to be talking about today, and systems that give you freedom. So every program really needs these 3 elements, but I have to tell you, I have taken many programs and not every program has it. So I call these elements all together a scalable signature program. And that is the focus of this series. We're going to be talking today about your signature program design, but make sure after this episode to check out last week's episode when I talked all about how to craft a magnetic offer. So let's dive into program design. Let's talk about how you can structure your program so you don't feel like you're winging it, but you're still creating a really strong connection with your clients. You're really supporting them, but there's still a structure in place. And if you are like many of the entrepreneurs I talk to, you might feel like, how do you structure it? Maybe you've run programs before and it was just kind of like you just threw it out there. You had people come with you and you just kind of like threw it out there. You were winging it and you want to say, okay, this time I wanted to feel a little bit more intentional. I wanted to feel a little bit more structured. Or maybe you're on the other side. And maybe you're like, oh my gosh, this whole build the plane as I'm flying it or launch my program before I've built it, that whole thing that I hear in entrepreneurship is not for me. That sounds very scary. I want to have it all planned out and ready to go, regardless of where you are on that spectrum. This episode's going to be for you. And maybe you're in that realm of I want it to feel really structured and prepared, but you've got so many ideas and so much experience and knowledge that it's hard to know what to leave in and what to leave out without overwhelming your people. So we're going to talk about that today too. And maybe you're like, you know what? I'm a coach. I've done this certification and EFT and NLP and this and that. And it's gone, you're a therapist and you've done all sorts of things. And it's like, okay, what activities and modalities do I actually include? What am I going to include in my program so that I can help people get results? So I want to show you how to address those challenges today so that you have a program you love, it gets great results, it's dependable. And so when you go to sell it, you're like, I know that this program for the right person is going to help someone because I feel so confident in it. And you can create that scalable program so you can help more people. You're not stuck in that trading time for dollars place, and you can have more freedom in your own life. And maybe like me, you want to have the freedom to spend with your family. So that is what we're going to be talking about today. And if you're new to me, welcome. My name's Lauren Monique, and I'm originally a teacher. So I have taught thousands of students. I started out as a dance teacher, and then I became a teacher, a French teacher. I've really, truly, when I think about the number of students I've taught, because really I started teaching when I was 16, I've taught thousands and thousands of students at this point. I've helped hundreds of teachers with this exact subject because you're a teacher, honestly, teachers struggle with knowing what to include and what to leave out and how to structure their courses and their programs. So, and a lot of them have in theory had this in their teaching degrees. So if you're struggling with this, it's very understandable. Or if you're like, I've got an idea, but I want to figure out how to actually structure it so it's really helpful for my people. This is for you, and because this is what I now do with entrepreneurs. So let's dive in. And I have 3 big ideas that I want to share with you today. So the first is, how can you structure your program while still feeling intuitive, while still feeling aligned and connected to your people? Because for me, what's really important is that I have a clear structure to follow, but I'm also really leaning into what my clients need, what my people need, where are they at, how are they feeling? And I want to have flexibility to really move with their particular needs. And that's why I love a group program over a course, because a course is like you've created it once and you might have group coaching along with it, but I find it's like you create it once and then it's more of a done DIY, right? I really like group programs because it's like I can have that core content that people can go through, but I can also really lean in and trust like I'm super intuitive and I really like to connect with where people are at and give them more of that personalized support. And maybe that's you too. And that's what we can talk about today. How can you strike that balance? And I have to tell you, I remember when I taught, and this is like one of the many, I don't know if you felt like this, if you had a 9 to 5 before you became an entrepreneur, or maybe you're in one right now, but there was like little hints that I was actually an entrepreneur and didn't struggle with the 9 to 5, but there were little pieces that I didn't quite fit in. And I remember one thing that I used to do, and my husband is a teacher and he was appalled. Like he would never, ever do this is I've taught elementary, preschool, I've taught high school, but at one point I was teaching high school and a lot of my students were taller than me. And I remember I tried to be earlier. I truly did, but I just would always end up like a few minutes before the first bell. So I would like sneak in with the students and hope that no one could tell because I was smaller than most of them. And I would kind of sneak in and hope that the principal wouldn't see me as I would like run up to my classroom, but I was ready to go. And it felt really irritating to me that I was supposed to be there 15 minutes before the bell. I was like, I'm ready. Why do I need to be there 15 minutes before the bell? But I didn't really want to have that conflict. So I just kind of like snuck in and hoped that no one saw me. And I mean, honestly, sometimes I was literally like at the bell. I was taking my keys out. I could hear everyone like saying like, where's Madame? Where's Madame? Like, where's the teacher? Where's the teacher? And I'd like kind of shimmy my way through, open up the door, and we'd be ready to go. And the reason I could do this is because I still had a structure. I was still ready. I had a way to follow, but I also really had a lot of flexibility in what I taught. And I was very flexible once I got in, and I had a structure. We had the rhythm that we followed, but I was really in tune with what my students needed. And I just didn't need to be there 2 hours early to prep for things. I just didn't. So that was my little moment of like, I don't like to be told what to do. I like to show up when I want to show up. And it seemed silly to show up 15 minutes early when I didn't need to. So I didn't. So I don't know if you had a moment like that before you became an entrepreneur, that it was like, oh, maybe there's a little piece of me that's like, I don't want to be told what to do. I want to have choice in my life. I think this is a silly rule and I don't want to follow it. That is definitely me. Anyway, so how can you create that structure while still feeling intuitive? So the thing I see is there are kind of 2 ways that you can swing with this, and there's challenges with each. One thing that I've seen entrepreneurs doing or coaches, is winging it. And winging it to such a degree that they don't mean to. But the challenge with this is sometimes you might not actually do what you said you are going to do. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this with a coach on your own. And some people, yes, they say whatever they need to say to get you in and they don't deliver. But in my experience, a lot of times it's not necessarily that they don't want to deliver. It's just that they're so they like the freedom so much that they don't like to be nailed down, or they just are so flexible and fluid that they forget what they say when they bring you into their program. And then you end up doing something different. And it's not really meeting your expectations. And so when it's too far in the flexible zone, and it can be challenging because you really want to know what your client's expectations are and be clear with that so they know they're going to get the result that they signed up for, right? And I know I've been in situations like that where it hasn't necessarily been what I thought I was going to get into. And maybe you're there and you're like, I don't want that to be me. I want it to be really clear that I'm communicating what it is that I'm going to do and how people are going to get the result, right? The other thing is if you're winging it and you don't have any kind of structure, is you won't necessarily be as efficient as you could be. I love a program where I'm like, listen, I don't want to be in tons and tons of different calls, listen to tons of different videos. I want the most succinct, clear. I can come in, get out what I needed. And it's like, I talked to my coach for 8 minutes, but I got exactly what I needed. Like I want it to be really efficient, an efficient use of my time. Because if you're like me, like I have little kids, like I do not have time and I don't want to be there for like a long period of time. I want it to be really efficient. And so when you have a nice amount of structure, you can be really intentional and use your time, your client's time well. So they really feel like they're getting a great result. Like it's a really efficient use of their time, which to me is really valuable. And it might be valuable for your clients as well. And maybe for you. So that's the danger if you wing it too much. But if you go the other end, and this is some of my entrepreneurs, some of my teachers were like this, you either want to over plan or over teach. Okay. And this might be you if you're like, that whole idea of, just launch a program before I've created it scares me. I do not want to do that. I want to have it all planned out. I want it to be professional. Or you think, oh, but they need to know this and they need to know this, which is getting into number 2. But maybe you either over plan, you really, really want it all structured before you even bring people in, or you over teach. And that can leave people feeling disengaged, overwhelmed. Like you risk not meeting the needs of the people in front of you because everything is overly structured and it doesn't leave the freedom to really meet the people that you have in front of you. So you want to have this balance between, yes, you have a plan, you know where you're going, you've got your outline for your program, but there's still freedom and flexibility within it. So you really make sure that you're meeting your clients' goals and you're getting them the results that they want. Because even if you've done your program for years, you can get different people in front of you who are going to need slightly different things, and you're still going to need to tweak it. So what I like to have is my 2 things. I like to, when I'm first starting, and you can think about this too, having your program outline. It's very clear where you're going, where you're starting, and the main topics you're going to cover. And we're going to get into topics in a moment because you don't want to just end there. You want to focus on results, but you have an idea of where you're going, what topics and results you're going to achieve with your clients. But then within that, you have freedom. Like this might take 2 sessions. This might take a little bit longer. This might take a little bit less as you're creating it. And then once it's created, I really like to have structured core content, like a core methodology curriculum that I have pre-recorded that I might refine and tweak, like for signature program design right now. That's the program that I run for entrepreneurs. I've created the entire methodology, but there are pieces that I'm like, this was in module 3. I think I actually want to move this to module 4. And there are some pieces I want to refine and change. Like I'm changing it as I go, but I have that core curriculum so that anytime someone joins, they can start getting results right away. They don't have to wait for me. But we also have the implementation calls, which we're going to get into in this episode too, so they can actually apply what they're learning and get out of that, I call it the learn-do ratio, that they're actually really, they're really balancing those 2 things. So you want to have an idea of what you really want to keep in mind when you're structuring your program is you want to have an overall structure that you're following based on where your people want to go. You want to have an idea of where you're going, but you want to have flexibility within that to move and change based on what they need. And one of my favorite ways is to have that structured core content methodology, that pre-recorded content, so that when you're meeting your people, you can be really flexible and based on what they need. Okay. So that's the first idea. The second is, one of the challenges you might face is, what should you include and what should you leave out? So the challenge is, if you're listening, you likely already have a lot of knowledge in your field. Most clients that I work with, I realized a lot of them have their masters, their PhDs. They have multiple certifications. They have really studied what they're doing in their programs. And it's really hard to know how to distill all your knowledge into a program. But that's actually not what you want to do. You don't want to think about distilling what you know. You want to be thinking about what is it that of everything that I can teach, I can coach people on, what are the pieces that are going to make the biggest difference to get them to the result that they want? So, for example, I've had clients who have like a master's in like their dietitians, they have their master's like that. Or I've had clients who have a master's of business. Listen, I don't want to get my master's to become a dietitian. I don't want to be a dietitian. I love what I do. And I don't want to spend all my time getting that master's. And so if you're trying to take all of that knowledge that you've acquired over time and experience and put it into your program, your people don't want that much. They just want the result that you can get them. Like if I'm working with a dietitian, I just want my kids to actually eat their dinner and not want copious amounts of snacks before bedtime. Like I just want to be like, we are all eating and I'm not just continually making more and more snacks for my kids. That's what I want. I don't need to know all the rest of it if I'm working with a dietitian, right? So what is it that your people want? What do they need to know in order to get there? Because if you're focused on just giving them everything that you need to, that you think, oh, this could be useful for them, and this could be useful for them, and this could be useful for them, you risk getting into that place of being a fire hose. Okay. Fire hose, like you're trying to water your plants with a fire hose. Instead, we want to be like an irrigation system on a farm, okay, or in a greenhouse. Like everything is timed, it's intentional, the amount of water that your plants are getting to grow. That's the kind of information and coaching and strategies to get your people the results. We want them to be very intentional at the right time and in the right amounts. Does that make sense? So you want to think about where are they when they start with you? Where do they want to go? And what is the fastest way to get them there? So I'll say that again. Where are they when they start with you? Where do they want to go? And I even think about like what mistakes are they making? And from there, I can just create the fastest path for them to get there, because that's one of the most valuable things when you think about it is getting your clients results quickly. So where are they when they start with you? Where do they want to go? And what's the fastest path to get them there? That can really give you an idea of what to include and what to leave out. Okay. And I'm actually going to be teaching more on this in an upcoming workshop that I'm going to share a little bit about at the end of this episode. So if you want to hear more, you want to ask me some questions on this, you want to think about how that could work for you, definitely come to my upcoming workshop and I'll be sharing more about that at the end of this episode. And then the last thing that you might be thinking about is you might think about like what activities or what modalities should I include in my group program? And so if you're a coach, you probably have a lot of methodology. I always say that word, modalities that you might want to use, or maybe you have different activities that you think about. Like I have a client who is a coach and she helps women write their dissertations. And what she does is she has activities that are writing specific, right? Like that help her clients get their writing done. And so we worked out different activities that she could do to help them actually get their writing in. So that is what I call an implementation strategy. So you want to have, like I said, that structured core content where you have either pre-recorded content or like, this is the methodology curriculum. Okay. I know not everyone likes that word. It sounds heavy. It's not heavy, but like the core structure, the core methodology that people can follow. And then you want to have ways to balance, and I mentioned this previously, their learn-do ratio. So your clients aren't just taking notes or learning, they're actually implementing what you're doing so that they can get the results. We want to balance their learn-do ratio. And this is actually one of my pet peeves is people think, oh, I just don't want to, like in school, like teaching is just someone standing at the front of the room and then me writing notes. And I think that's what they think about as teaching. And I don't want to just teach. Like, that's not good teaching. Good teaching is going to help your students or your clients. Yes, you teach them a concept, but you need to have ways to help them actually integrate it and be able to do it. They need to be able to take an action at the end so that they get the result that you're looking for. Like my clients, I can teach you about like how to create an offer and how to create a program and how to create systems. But if you're just taking notes on how to create an offer, like that's not going to be helpful. I want you to actually create your offer and I'll give you feedback on your offer. So you have something tangible when you leave, right? So we want to have what kind of strategies are you going to use to make sure that they have something tangible, a tangible result at the end of your program. So I call these implementation strategies to get to the final result. So everything you do is always leading to that end result. What do they want to get to? And so you might have different things, like you might have coaching, you might have meditations, you might have worksheets, you might have accountability groups or accountability partners. Maybe you use things like EFT, different ways, but it's always linking back to that final result. And when you have your outline, this becomes much easier. You think of your implementation systems later. And we dive deeper into this in signature program design, but I wanted to give you an idea. One of my favorites, because I have that teaching background, is I like to have my clients watch a short lesson before our implementation calls. They watch a short lesson, they get the main idea of it, and then we work through it together. So like, say you're working through your program structure, you could watch like some of my videos on how to do it. And then we come into our call and then we say, okay, what's your program structure? How's that going? And we give, like, I can give you real-time feedback. I literally give people time to write and think about it, talk to one another, think about it, get feedback from me, get feedback from the class, like from other people in the group. So then you have something actually tangible at the end. Like that's one of my favorite implementation strategies is to actually use the time to workshop it together. So that's another example. So you want to think about like, what's your outline? Where are you going? What information do they need to learn? But then how are you going to balance their learn-do ratio with your implementation strategies? So let's sum up the main ideas that we looked at today when it comes to creating your program. So you want to be able to structure it. So you have the structure while still feeling intuitive, while still feeling connected to your people so that you can really help them move forward. And it's not so rigid that it's only a course and it's only DIY. Like you can really still help them and support them and give them a higher touch experience if that's what you're looking to do. Like that's what I like to do. But you don't want it so free that they don't really necessarily get the results they're after, right? So you want to have like that structured flow, like you want to structure it while still feeling intuitive. To know what to include and what to leave out, you need to really get a sense of where your clients are, where they're going, and creating that fastest path to get there. And then from there, once you have your path, you want to include implementation strategies so you can help them balance their learn-do ratio. So I hope that this episode was helpful for you. If you want to dive deeper into this and you want if you're ready, you're thinking, okay, yeah, I really want to have my program that feels structured. I know I can help people, but I want to think about how I can actually like take my ideas and really create that path for people to follow. I would love for you to come to my upcoming workshop. That is exactly what we're going to be diving into, how to build and optimize your group program. So I will leave a link to that in the show notes. Definitely sign up. I would love to see you there. And I will see you next week on another episode of the Align and Inspire podcast, where we're going to be diving into the third part of creating a scalable signature program. We're going to be talking about what systems you need so that you can keep growing it and get more freedom back in your life. So I'm really looking forward to that episode, and I will see you next week on the Align and Inspire podcast. Talk soon.